Stocks surge on bad news. We're going to talk about that bad news and why it is happening. Hey everybody, JJ here. Bull to the bus. It is Thursday, March 26th. Wanted to do a quick report on this. Right now, if this doesn't tell you that this is manipulated, then you need to think again, or at least look again. All right, so we're going to talk about what the bad news is. Well, the bad news is 3.3 million jobless claims were filed. Now, of course, many people paying attention, we did see that this was going to happen, and it's probably going to get worse. Right, but that was the all-time record increase in a jump of jobless claims, 3.3 million. Right, on top of this, we've got virus cases. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. Let me change that. There we go, illness cases. What's happening, folks, there's a crackdown on people even talking about this illness outbreak. If you're not a doctor, they say it's dangerous, so I guess that's why they're cracking down on channels for even talking about this. So that's why you hear me try to come up with these alternate names for this sickness outbreak. And if you watch other YouTube channels, I'm sure you probably have maybe heard that a time or two. But let's take a look at the stock market and what happened today. Up 1351 on the Dow. That was good for 6%. S&P 500 up over 6%. NASDAQ also up nearly 6%. Gold still creeping back up there, 1627 for gold. Oil beat back down to $23. That's a decline of 4%. Bitcoin and cryptos even caught a bid as well, a little bit of a bid. And I think you're likely going to see that continue as people look for a safe haven as they get further and further distrustful of this economic system that's so widely manipulated that even the casual observer is starting to see the manipulation here. So look at over just the past few days here. We're now in a 3-day gain of 21%, and these markets are bobbing up and down so swiftly, and it's so volatile that it's even hard to get in and try to identify a dip. And before you know it, it's up 20%, and you've just noticed the trend reversal. You know, if you're a few days late, it's too late. Now, I expect the stock market not to go below 18,000. Why? Because it's manipulated. If it was real people playing with real money, and if they actually had some skin in the game and something to lose, then I would guess that the stock market would keep dropping. It wouldn't have got this high in the first place if it was real people playing with real money. But we know that the reality that we're in right now, most of this is not real money. This is money that's not backed by anything. It's a completely monopolized money, monopoly money. Right? Imagine a kid coming up to you with a little machine and he's cranking a handle and some paper's coming out with some ink on them. You know, you wouldn't accept that as a currency, but when the scholars get up there with their suits and with their Harvard degrees and whatnot, then people tend to listen. Those are the monopoly men that people listen to, aka the central bankers, aka the Fed. All right, not to diverge too much from today's topics here. So illness cases are still increasing. Now, some may say that the stimulus that was passed, and we did a report on that earlier, some may say that's good news, but a lot of times on good news, you see a buy the rumor, sell the facts. So many people were expecting the market to drop when the agreement was reached, when it was finalized. So the buy the rumor, sell the fact theory has been thrown out the window as stocks continue to surge upward today. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to see other big drops, 1,000-point drops maybe, who knows. But the fact that this market is completely detached from the news and from reality should be painfully obvious to everyone right now. And I'm still predicting that Dow Jones goes back to 30,000 if, and let me say if, the sickness continues to, well, I shouldn't say continue, if it starts to decline. But right now, illnesses and the cases are still increasing. But here is what some are perceiving as good news. Illness cases are still increasing, but the increase has slowed. So now, instead of 1,000 people, and I'm just using round numbers here, instead of 1,000 people rather getting sick daily, now it's 900. So the rate of the sickness increase has slowed down, but overall it's still increasing. Right? So I don't look at that as good news. I look at that as bad news. That's like you go to a casino every day, Monday through Friday. The first day you lose $10,000. The second day you lose $9,000. The third day you lose $5,000. And then by Friday you've only lost $2,000. You know, so you're losing money each day. You're not losing as much, All right, so if you want to be super optimistic, you could look at that as improvement. Hey, I only lost 2,000 today. Friday, Monday, I lost 10,000. So look at this improvement. Isn't this great? Well, you're still losing money, just not as much. In this case, the rate of illnesses is still increasing, but the rate of increase has slowed. So you can see how just ridiculous it is. I mean, you can't make this type of stuff up. It's so ridiculous. All right, so that was a supposed good news that the people that said that was the reason for stock market jumping up today. That was the so-called good news, according to some of the legacy media folks. All right, let's talk about the stimulus, and we did a whole report on this earlier. Who's getting the cash, how much? This might help temporarily, but it's not a long-term solution. In fact, it's more of the problem that we see in this country is people just living off of the system, right? So we live in a country where we have such a big social safety net. There's actually many individuals in the United States that never miss a meal, that have also never worked a day in their life. That is the type of social safety net that we have, and that's what you can have in place when there's unlimited printing press. I mean, and they're not really printing it, they're just creating it or digitizing it in this case. There's not even enough physical cash in the system right now to pay for all the debt, right? So it's all digital. So we have more digital debt than we actually have physical cash and coins. Now, of course, there are people out there that do need the stimulus cash to get them through, maybe pay their rent. But there's also larger talks now of freezing rents and disallowing landlords from evicting people. And we've talked about that. If you do that, you've also got to freeze foreclosures, because if renters stop paying their rent, then a lot of landlords and homeowners that are renting out their homes may see their homes get into foreclosure if they can't keep up with the payments, if they have payments. And even if homeowners don't have payments, they still have other carrying costs like taxes and insurance, maintenance and upkeep, maybe HOA fees in some areas. So they're going to have to freeze a lot of other things if they freeze rent. So you can see this is a big mess. Are they going to put a freeze on HOA fees? Are they going to put a freeze on taxes, property taxes? Right? So you can see how this could snowball into just something that's just going to be a monstrosity of government intervention. It already is, but we've only seen the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm concerned. Now, what do I mean by a Band-Aid on a broken leg? Well, basically, think about if you had a flat tire and you patched it, or a roadside assistance guy came along and patched it with some duct tape and said, there you go, you're all fixed. Well, maybe it'll get you a few feet down the road, or maybe a few miles, depending on the size of the hole in the tire. But it's just a temporary fix. It's not even going to last that long. And the problem is there's so much inflation already. The cost of living is so high that even a couple $1,000 stimulus check is only going to get people a very short distance, on that tire that has the duct tape in this case. And why is the cost of living so high? Well, it's the inflation that they have created. And I say they, I'm talking about the bankers, the monopoly men. So you continue to throw money at the problem and things are only going to get worse. And now with the slowdown in production, you're going to have more money being thrown at lesser and lesser goods and items. And that's going to start to cause even more inflation, hopefully not to hyperinflation. But you can see this is probably going to be a very short-term fix. And I wouldn't even call it a fix. I'd call it it's more of a feel-good. Throw some breadcrumbs out to the workers. Throw some breadcrumbs out to the Main Street in this case. And the loaves of bread and the rest of the dinner, the turkey and the mashed potatoes, those go to the corporations and the institutions. But people, they'll be happy with some breadcrumbs to help them get them through, a few more months or a few more weeks, depending on how dire the situation is for people. Right? And think about all the people that never felt this impact. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But here is the headline out of this jump up in unemployment, 3.3 million. That's quadruple the previous record. So this is the worst, let's say, financial incident in history when you just look at the numbers and the surge in unemployment. And this is out of WJCL.com. Here is a chart here, and we look to the right here and we see just the enormous surge. All right, now let's go back to the year 2000. That way we can see the dot-com bubble bust and the uptick at that time, the housing bubble and the financial crisis, 2007, 2008, and the uptick at that time. To the far right here, I mean, this is just a monstrosity. And again, it could be the tip of the iceberg. So brace yourselves, folks, because they can pump the stock market back up and give people confidence, and that way they can continue the illusion of a strong economy. All right, but be careful when prices start rising, especially food, because we've got such a big collision happening right now with money being pumped into the system. The banks are being ever increasingly liquefied so they can keep lending, giving more people that don't have money to actually go out and spend money they don't have. It's called borrowing. Combine that with a slowdown in production, the farmers that got slammed over the past few years with these increased severe weather patterns, and we could be still headed into a very big storm. Now, 99% of the people, probably none of you on this channel, but 99% of the population will think that everything has been fixed, and then one day they're going to say, hey, why can't I buy any food even though, I got my job back? Right? But think about all the people that are never going to get their job back. Think about the businesses that are not going to be able to survive through this. Now, we're going to talk about more on that in our next report, right? But there are businesses that are not going to be able to recover from this. It's going to be pretty ugly. Right, this is happening globally. It's the same type of system globally. You have the monopoly men, just different countries going under different names, different banks. Right, here's a headline right here. Bank of England keeps rates at nearly zero and says they could expand their asset purchases if necessary. Right, that's all they have is debt, pumping money into the system, lowering rates, keeping rates low, and they're likely going to have to go negative here in the near future. I hate to say it. All right, but don't worry, everybody. Jerome Powell, he's out there. He's got a message for us. He said the Fed, they're working hard to support us. Well, that's right. Once they get you trapped into the monetary system, it's like someone that's hooked on drugs. They need ever increasing dosages just to keep the same feeling alive or keep the same high alive in this case. All right, let's take a look at this next article here. Mortgage rates fall sharply as the Fed brings stability to the mortgage market. So the Fed is intervening to keep mortgage rates low. That way you can go out and buy an overpriced home and borrow more money with lower rates. And even though the banks are broke, they're worried about bank runs because they don't have enough reserves, enough physical cash in their coffers. Don't worry about it. They can still loan out money because it's monopoly money. And yeah, they'll get you into an overpriced home. That way when the next shoe drops, the next thing that goes wrong with the system, more people will be begging for mortgage forgiveness. Right? And think about all of the programs that we're having to implement just in a matter of a few weeks since everything has been shut down. That shows you the bad position that so many consumers are in. When you have people living paycheck to paycheck, it only takes a couple weeks of a shutdown before people are begging for breadcrumbs. Right? But that's what happens when you have a country of people that don't pay attention to things that are important. You have people that'll tell you who the stars are on all the reality shows. They'll tell you the sports team that's got the best record. Right? They'll tell you who won the Oscars, who won the Emmy Awards. Right? They'll tell you Kim Kardashian's latest line of clothing. Right? You know what I mean? But I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks for paying attention and coming back to this channel. If you like what we talk about, please give us a thumbs up. It definitely helps us get exposure. And do me a favor, if you give me a thumbs down, tell me why down in comments. Right? Sometimes I see 10 or 20 thumbs down and only 3 or 4 negative comments. So people are just thumbing down and leaving. Tell me what I'm wrong at. Tell me what you disagree with. And that way you can help me improve. Thank you, everybody. Hope you're well. Hope you're staying healthy and above water. Ride the bull, prepare for the bear. Bye for now.